What's going on, guys? Mike here, and today we're going to be revealing my bi-weekly portfolio with Wealthsimple on my RSP and TFSA accounts. Before we start though, please be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can get all the future content. Alright, so you'll see here, just looking at my Wealthsimple account, that we have just under 27,000 under both accounts, primarily with RSP being my biggest holder. Before we get into RSP, we'll start with the TFSA. And I have a number of holdings here with the bulk of my money being in XEQT. For those of you who don't know what that is a global diversified fund that holds stocks internationally, and it's just a well-rounded fund. Typically, the reason why I chose to do the bulk of my money in here is, again, I'm not a professional. I want my money primarily managed by professionals, but I also still like to play. So looking at XEQT, my goal or my aim is to have roughly about 70% of my money in XEQT. But the primary focus I wanted to show today was the yields in all of these different stocks, and this one being at 2.9%. So moving back, we'll actually start at the top here now, which is Enbridge. Which is actually inside XEQT, but I like to have a little bit of extra exposure to a number of stocks that will go through my list here today, to just, potentially to utilize or capitalize on a little bit more of growth. So Enbridge here is one of my favorite stocks, paying at about 6.88 annually for dividends. They're kind of a mixture of yield as well as a bit of growth in the actual stock themselves. I just really like the company model and everything about Enbridge, so I do have some money in there. Also too, I should mention that I kind of have a rule of thumb is that I don't actually have more than 5% of my money in any individual stock. So you'll notice I don't really have too much, $240 in Enbridge, but that's just because it's aligned with my strategy. Next here we have PLZ. Which is a real estate REIT, and this was actually one of the very first REITs that I invested into. It actually pays 6.26% yield, which is really good. And I'll actually do a later video on this particular stock, because they're over their 6% yield. They're actually only paying out roughly 70% of their earnings, which is actually quite low in regards to REITs. Lots of them are in the 80s or even 90s. So it's actually quite promising. The next one on the list here is Power Corp, which is kind of another blue chip kind of company in Canada, coming in at 5.68%. Next, we actually have another real estate REIT, Smart Centers, paying out at 7.01%. And again, last time I checked on these guys, I think they were paying out in the 90 percentile, which is, getting up there. There's a potential maybe that they'll be reducing their dividend payout because of maybe less earnings with these interest rates, but it's all stuff we'll cover here in future videos. Next one here is TELUS. Again, another really great dividend Canadian payer at 5.15. And my last one here being TD Canada Trust, being at 4.48%. So moving on to my RSP, quite similar. My goal in here again is to have a name of about 70% of my money in XEQT, but I do have a little bit of a different plays in this one. So I actually do keep a kind of a cash portion to buy kind of additional dips, which I actually keep in a high interest savings ETF called PSA. And for those of you who don't know what a high interest saving ETF is, please refer to my other video that actually goes over this in detail. But yeah, so instead of just holding the cash, I like keeping my money in a savings ETF that is collecting 4.84%. It's better to collect, over anything close to 5% if it's just going to kind of sit there as cash. Next thing is RioCan, which is again another real estate REIT, paying in at 4.96%. Next one is VDY, which is actually one of my favorite ETFs. And I only aim to have about 15% of my money in this one. There is some overlap because it does have like TD Canada Trust as well as Enbridge in this ETF. but it also has many other dividend payers within Canada. And over the last 10 years, again, I won't go into detail in this particular video, but it's gotten about 100% return when you include the dividends and the capital growth over the last 10 years. And, again, that doesn't mean it's going to do the same thing in the next 10 years. But I just have a lot of faith in a lot of the high dividend payers in Canada that they're going to continue doing well. But they do pay a monthly dividend of 4.63%, which I thought anything over 4 in my books is good. So moving on, again, XUQT, I won't go back into that one. And my last entry here is ZEG, which is a bond fund. I only do about 10% of bonds. I'm only 32 years old. I have hesitations about bonds, but we're doing it anyways. And this one pays out a 3.46%. And yeah, so far it's been pretty good. I've actually bought in kind of at the lows of ZEG, just when kind of the peak of the interest rates here. So I do feel that I kind of got in at a good price, or I actually probably will get some capital appreciation out of it. But yeah, so that is my portfolio that I'm revealing, and I do have intentions of doing an update, again, based on this channel being as a bi-weekly investor. I will be recording what I'm buying, what I'm selling, and going over all of those details in future videos. So if you think that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe. If you are looking for a broker, I do have Wealthsimple referral links in my description below. That gets you a chance to win $3,000 as well as potentially me, so it's a win-win. Other than that, I hope everyone stays strong, and I'll see you in the next one.